6, a helping hand with your land.
Neil from Essex here. We're out today with two track loaders, a Kubota SVL75 and a BOBCAT T300. We're going to do a short demonstration today on some of the differences between electronic pilot controls and hydraulic over hydraulic pilot controls. When you're sitting in the seats of these machines, the joysticks look very similar to each other, but you can see that there's some real mechanical differences in the way that they work. So take a quick walk around here with me with these today, and we'll show you some of the differences between how these machines operate. Now let me be very, very clear that this is not intended to be a competitive comparison between these two machines. When you're in our situation and you have the opportunity to go to manufacturer training events and that kind of stuff, where we can have half a dozen competitive machines lined up side by side and you can jump from the seat of one machine to the other, you'll start to notice some differences between how machines operate. Okay, so we're going to go through and we're going to do a demonstration of how the electronic controls in this BOBCAT respond, but be very, very clear, I'm not saying that all electronic controls are this way. There can be some dramatic differences between manufacturers and the way that their sensitivities are done or their controls might be built. They're going to cause them to behave very differently than what this machine does. So I'm not trying to go through and badmouth BOBCAT. That's not the point. What we're trying to show is a reason why you should take the time to sit in the seat of a machine that you might be considering and actually operate it, because there can be some very clear differences in the way that they work. So the demonstration that we're going to try to do here today is a difference between a hydraulic over hydraulic pilot control like Kubota uses and an electronic over hydraulic control like BOBCAT and many other competitive machines use. What the difference that you'll notice is in a mechanically controlled machine, you don't have that computer sitting between the stick and the machine, and so oftentimes you'll feel the hydraulic over hydraulic being a little bit more predictable, particularly when you come to doing fast motion. So the real demonstration that we're going to do here is when we take this stick and we make quick movements with the stick, typically done to, say, shake dirt out of a bucket, right? If you got your bucket packed full of mud and you need to get the mud to fall out, you're typically going to jostle your bucket really hard in order to shake the dirt out. And when you do this with this electronic stick, you'll find that whatever it's doing in its computer is kind of going to average out and take out that shaky motion, making it more difficult to get a shutter out of the bucket to knock the dirt loose. So I'm going to start the machine here, run into our test pile of dirt, and kind of talk you through some of the things that I'm doing and sensing the way that the machine's responding. I'm going to take this guy over here, start her up, and come around here into our pile of dirt. And this is just our test pile down here. And we're going to bury into this thing and try to break this out and get this thing packed good and full. Now, generally what you're going to do in one of these machines is you're going to be doing your dirt work all day, transporting to another location and going to dump. And if your dirt is really wet, and particularly if you have a curved back bucket, you can find that you can get that dirt stuck into the back of the bucket, right? And you're going to come out here, lift the machine up, and shake that dirt out. And look what I'm doing here. See how I'm shaking my stick back and forth? And my bucket's hardly moving. And so now my dirt's not stuck in here, okay? So you got to give me that. But there's a rate in here that the stick is just not responding to my motion. So I'm going to go really quick here, and you see I'm getting basically no movement at all. Now as I slow down, I'll start to get a little bit more shake, but I'm just not getting that much shake out of it. And you'll notice a lot of the motion that I'm getting here that you're probably seeing from the bucket might be a little hard to see from my perspective, but it's actually slop in the quick coupler between the coupler and the bucket. So I have a hard time getting quick motions out of the machine when these electronics are always interpreting what they think I want to be doing. And this happens at high RPMs as well here too. So even with the thing wound up the whole way, I have a hard time making that aggressive shaking motion. So that's not to say that there's no benefits to an electronic stick. One of the things that this machine is able to do is to switch between different pattern selections. So I have a switch up here in my headliner to switch between ISO controls or H pattern. If you're somebody who likes the old H pattern control style, an electronic stick like this is able to do that. Very, very few operators tend to prefer that anymore. but that is something that this machine would be able to do that a hydraulic over hydraulic cannot. So I had that same amount of delay in my drive stick as well. If I sit here from a standstill, take my RPMs up, I'm going to take my left-hand drive stick, and when I go to full right, see how long it takes between me moving the stick and the machine responding to my inputs. This one is not too bad in terms of dead area. When I've been on some other machines in the past, you can find that you have to move the stick a pretty fair distance before it starts to respond. In the case of the Bobcat, it's actually not that bad. Again, so more reason in why you want to actually sit and operate a machine before you purchase one, because that portion of it, the responsiveness of the stick and the size of the dead areas is very different between different manufacturers. That lag time is awfully odd. So here we go. Full throttle, throw it to the side. I mean, it's a solid 1.5 seconds before I get any motion out of the machine at all. And that also happens when I'm moving. So if I'm going left and I want to go right, I end up over-rotating before the machine responds. Now this one, you will notice that some of the newer machines that are coming out now have adjustments for how responsive those controls are. In this case, this one does not have any of those machines, those options on it. So you don't have a way in here to say dial up or down these and make adjustments to these sticks, which is something that you're starting to see coming out now. So we're going to do the same kind of demonstration now on the Kubota. The Kubota also uses the same ISO pilot control layout that the Bobcat does, but mechanically these sticks are different. Rather than being electronic sensors in the sticks, there's actually wet hydraulic lines that go down from them down to the valve stack. This would be much the same way that excavator controls are done. So when Kubota designed this machine, obviously they took all their experience from the excavator space and used that in the control pattern on the track loaders. So the one thing that we typically hear from our customers that are choosing these systems, whether you're in an electronic or a hydraulic system, is that these are just a little bit more responsive. You don't have that lag time or computerized averaging and those kinds of things that are happening in an electronic stick and a mechanical system. So the first thing we'll do here is the drive stick. You remember when we were just in the Bobcat, when I move this stick to the side, I sit and I kind of wait for it to respond, okay? So when I go in the Kubota here, I move almost instantly. And when I come to the side and I go back the other direction, I move much more quickly and I'm not overshooting as much as I was in the Bobcat. So just a little bit of a difference in the way these controls work. In terms of how responsive they are. And I'm going to get the same thing in my loader stick here as well. When I come back and I take my bucket and I want to shake my bucket, you can see how much more violently I'm able to shake, right? No matter how fast I shake this stick. Probably shook the living daylights out of my GoPro there. No matter how fast I do that, I get a really hard shake out of the bucket. So if I'm trying to get that stuck debris out, I can shake much more forcefully than I can with the other machine. Talking about dead spots for a little bit too in the electronic stick, and again, that's another place where these hydraulic sticks are just a little bit different. Once I've moved this handle about ½ an inch, I can start to hear the valves work. And so I get that much more predictable, smooth motion out of these than what I typically would get in the electronic Bobcat. And again, I'm not trying to make this a competitive comparison to a Bobcat machine necessarily. you know, every generation that comes out, they change how these things work, and different machines receive software updates at different times. Really what we're just trying to demonstrate here is that there's value in you taking the time to go out and operate a machine if you're considering one. You know, you might hop on one of these and be a page pattern guy and not be able to run a Kubota, or you might go and you'll find that there's an application where you really appreciate the electronic stick or the adjustability of one, or we are starting to see some applications now where implements are giving electronic feedback to the machine, and it can vary its speed based on that implement. They're kind of niche cases, but there's value in coming out to one of our dealerships and sitting on different machines and seeing how they work. You know, we're sitting here in a Kubota today to show the hydraulic over hydraulic capabilities. We also are a New Holland and Case dealer as well who does use an electronic stick, and I can say from my experience it's much more responsive than the one in the Bobcat that I was just operating. So again, you know, take the time to hop on a machine, operate it, and really see how you like the feel of it itself, because there are some significant differences in the way that these things operate. So that's how some of the mechanical differences between a hydraulic over hydraulic pilot controlled machine and electric over hydraulic pilot controlled machine can seem to an operator. So again, today, not trying to do a competitive comparison between a Kubota and a Bobcat. That's not really our goal. More to sit here and say there's good value in sitting in one of these pieces of equipment and operating it yourself so you can feel out some of these differences. You know, we have the ability to go in our dealership when we're at training events and hop from one machine to the next, and there are definite characteristics that you'll find between different companies' equipment. So if we could show you today one of the tractors and equipment that we sell, come on, stop down at one of our lots. We have 5 locations in South Central Pennsylvania. Glad to help you with any parts and service needs that you might have as well. So give us a call at Messick's. We're available at 800-222-3373 or online at messick's.com.